All right. All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And I'm going to be continuing the book of First Maccabees. Today we're going to go into the second chapter, and Lord willing, it'd be edifying to the elect. Okay, so we're going to get right into it now. The first chapter we dealt more with, it gave like a brief history of the Greek Empire, starting with Alexander on down to his death, on down to the generals that took over after him, on down to Antiochus Epiphanes, and his reign and his the tragedies that he caused to come upon the nation of Israel, and a few things there. So picking up from there, we're still at the point where Antiochus he has given this decree, all right, where they set up idol altars, and they went around basically making sure that there were overseers set up to make sure that people weren't keeping their own laws, heavily so Israel, and that they had departed from that and they were doing after the ordinance of the king. So this is the book of First Maccabees chapter 2. It says, in those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Joarib, from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. Now, let's look this up here. Modin. Let's do Bible map. And let's take a look at that. I don't think it's too far from Jerusalem, but does it show us where this place is? Okay. Yep, there we go. So we can see Modin or Modin, however you want to say it, is right here, and Jerusalem is more south, right? Jerusalem is more southeast of Modin. So this is where Mattathias and his sons were, and as it says, a priest, okay, of the sons of Joarib. So they were Levites, right? Because we know that the Levites at this time, they were the priests, right? So it says here, verse 2, and he had 5 sons, Johanan, called Caddis, Simon, called Thasai, Judas, who was called Maccabeus, Eleazar, called Avaran, and Jonathan, whose surname was Aphis. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, woe is me! Wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people, and of the holy city, and to dwell there, when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, and the sanctuary into the hand of strangers? Because at this time, Jerusalem had been pretty much overran or overrun by the heathens, all right, and wicked Israelites that sold out. They had set up a garrison, a fortress in the city of David. They were slaying people left and right. They were killing women that had their children circumcised. They were killing the babies. They were killing the people that did the circumcision. They had a gym built in Jerusalem, so it was just complete madness going on there. Verse 8, it says, her temple is become as a man without glory. Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets, her young men with the sword of the enemy. What nation hath not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? And all her ornaments are taken away. Of a free woman she has become a bond slave. And what he is doing is he's basically personifying Jerusalem, to being poetic with it, but in a form of emphasizing, because sometimes you can only emphasize something so much when you speak of it as it is. It isn't until you personify it, or you put it in certain terms, that you can really put such emphasis on it, right? So that's what he's doing here, likening Jerusalem as at one point being a free woman to now becoming a bond slave. That's basically describing the condition that it was in. And behold, our sanctuary, even our beauty and our glory, is laid waste, and the Gentiles have profaned it. To what end, therefore, shall we live any longer? Then Mattathias and his sons rent their clothes and put on sackcloth and mourned very sore. Now, as you're reading this, you have to imagine what's going on. Okay, it's a one-liner, or two verses to us, but when you actually in that actual instance, he wasn't. I mean, I'm reading it in a certain tone because I'm reading the scripture, but you can imagine Mattathias actually saying these things, right? He wouldn't say it emotionlessly, right? Yeah, oh wow, Jerusalem is this, and no, they were mourning. Okay, so they said it out of stress, out of sorrow, out of anger, and it said, as you can see, they rent their clothes and mourned very sore. So it goes on to read. It says, in the meanwhile, the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city of Modin to make them sacrifice. Now, the king's officers, you had certain wicked Israelites that did get positions as like officers and so on and so forth, as well as different heathens and so on and so forth. It says, and so imagine how wicked that is. And when many of Israel came unto them, Mattathias also and his sons came together. So you can imagine the king's officers traveling, right, going through the cities, compelling people to revolt, meaning compelling them to go off, right? Hey, you come here, you sacrifice this. So they finally made their way to the city of Modin, where Mattathias and his sons were. And so everybody came, right? Oh, shoot, the officers are here. What is it? What's going on? And so Mattathias and his sons came along. So you can imagine that it said what? Many of Israel came. So there would be a crowd. Then answered the king's officers and said to Mattathias, on this wise, and said to Mattathias on this wise, thou art a ruler and an honorable and great man in this city, and strengthened with sons and brethren. Now therefore come thou first and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen have done, yea, and the men of Judah also, and such as remain at Jerusalem. So shalt thou and thy house be in the number of the king's friends, and thou and thy children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards. All right, so he's out here trying to entice Mattathias with these, with silver and gold and status, as if that's what he was interested in, right? Um, then Mattathias answered and spake with a loud voice. Right. So once again, now you gotta, as you're reading this, you gotta visualize it. He said it with a loud voice, not softly in a monotone way. Okay. It says, though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall away every one from the religion of their fathers, and give consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers. God forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's words to go from our religion, either on the right hand or the left. Now, when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment. So here it is, the officers here. There's a crowd here. Mattathias being the priest, right, looked to as a leader. This officer tells him, look, you come, you do this, you set the example, and the rest will follow, and you're gonna get all these perks. And and Mattathias is standing firm with a loud voice, letting it be known so anybody that's around can hear it. That him and those that were with him ain't gonna stand for this. And here it is. You're gonna have of course, some dumb frozen avocado head Israelite gonna walk up, and you can already imagine it. Jake walks up, man, whatever, man. He ain't gonna do it. Shit, give me that. I'll take the silver. On some like what's this guy's name? Boozy Badass or whatever. You can imagine somebody like him, you know, mumbling on his way there already. Man, I'll do that shit, man. Give me that pork. Whatever it is, because that's Jake. Okay. So it says here, that's in verse 23, right? So it says, now when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar, which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment. Which thing when Mattathias saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled. neither could he forbear to shew his anger according to judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar. So you can imagine Mattathias, you can imagine somebody so angry, so pissed off that this isn't even just like an emotional anger. This is a zealous anger. Okay, this is rage on a different level. Okay, so you can imagine this, and like it says, his reins trembled like Goku about to go Super Saiyan. You could go YouTube that video when he went Super Saiyan for the first time, right? Just I mean, like, and as it says, he couldn't forbear to show his anger, so he was so angry at that sight that he ran and slew this Israelite upon the altar. Why didn't the Most High punish Mattathias for murder? But as it says, right, he slew this Israelite upon the altar. So Mattathias wasn't a frail old man. You imagine some old, like what was this, verse 24? Somebody like this. They show like a frail old man standing there. Look at this guy. Nah, man. Yeah, even if you were old, you still had strength. So as it says right there, so he ran and he slew him upon the altar. Also, the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time, and the altar he pulled down. So Mattathias basically went into a rage, okay? And he pretty much he slew that Israelite and he slew that king, the king's commissioner. So he wasn't playing around, and he did it out of zeal. All right, you can imagine the spirit of the Lord came upon him and compelled him, to go into this zealous rage and to put these people to death. So it says here, verse 26, thus dwelt he zealously for the law of God, like as Phineas did unto Zambri, the son of Salum, which the account of this is in Numbers, the 25th chapter. So let's read that real quick. Now, as you can see, it says the sin of Peor. It says Numbers 25:1, and Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bow down to their gods. So, and this is the Moabite women, all right, called the Israelites, okay, and the Israelites went, all right, to the sacrifices of these heathens and ate of their sacrifices and bowed down to their gods. And this is something. This is almost like your woman committing adultery and you witnessing that, like her being called by another man, and she's going there and she's willing that she's actually actively committing adultery before you. That's why the Lord, the first commandment is not having any other gods beside the Lord. Verse 3, and Israel joined himself onto Baal Peor, which when you look that up, I believe it's Lord of the Gap. It says, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. And the Lord said unto Moses, take all the heads of the people and hang them up before the Lord against the sun, that the fierce anger of the Lord may be turned away from Israel. And when you look this up in the other translations, let me actually do that now. You'll see, I think this Bibles. Yep. So for example, the NKJV, then the Lord said unto Moses, take all the leaders of the people and hang them and hang the offenders before the Lord out in the sun, that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away from Israel. You have the NLT. It says the Lord issued the following command to Moses. Let's keep in mind the Most High, God, right? God is love, right? God told Moses that we all know about to what? Seize all the ringleaders and execute them before the Lord in broad daylight. What, isn't that like a fatality or like a brutality? What's going on? God does not kill. Killing is evil. Why would God do such a thing? And once again, if somebody tells you that, you got to tell them go and read the Torah. Go read the first 5 books of the Bible, and then you come back and tell me if the God you read about is the God that you thought he was. You can't get around it. Okay, this is why the Most High is to be feared. He's not squeamish. As it says here, so his fierce anger will turn away from the people of Israel. So the Lord told Moses to basically do a public execution. It says, where we at? Where we at? Okay. And Moses said unto the judges of Israel, slay ye every one of his men that were joined unto Baal Peor. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitish woman in the sight of Moses, and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Yet again, you have another dumbass Israelite who is he's so busy doing wickedness that here it is. The rest of those who knew their power were out here weeping and all that, and this dude is pulling up with a Midianitish woman to bring onto his brethren. All right. It says, and when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand. And for those that don't know what a javelin looks like, this is what a javelin looks like. Javelin weapon. Weapons. Wow. What in the world? There we go. Something like that. Okay. There you go. So he grabbed this, well, pretty much like a spear, right? But Phinehas, all right, out of the zeal of the Lord, he took a javelin in his hand. Now, what do you think Phinehas was going to do with the javelin? It says here, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. Once again, you have to visualize what's going on. Now, ask one question. Okay, he goes into the tent. Now, the man came with a Midianitish woman into the tent. What do you think? What do you think was going on in that tent? You think they were playing patty cake? Clearly, this dude was either in the midst of partaking in certain activities or about to partake in certain activities. I will lean more towards in the midst of partaking in certain activities. Reason being, if Phinehas came into the tent and it says, from the way it says it, he thrust both of them through, right? Now, a javelin is only so long. So in order to thrust the man through and also go through the belly of the woman, that means the man needs to be standing pretty close, standing, laying on top, whatever, pretty close to the woman, that with one thrust, you can get the man and the woman together. You know, like it's not really funny, but you know, like how they have certain sandwiches or the Cuban sandwiches where they got the little toothpick thrust right through the whole thing. So, you know, but the point is they were thrust through. Okay. And that takes a fierce spirit to do that, right? But that's how zealous, all right, that our forefathers were for the law of the Lord. It says here, so the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. Now let's see, what was the Lord's reaction to Phinehas taking a javelin and stabbing through an Israelite man and a Midianitish woman? It says, and those that died in the plague were 24,000. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, hath turned my wrath away from the children of Israel, while he was zealous for my sake among them, that I consumed not the children of Israel in my jealousy. Wherefore say, behold, I give unto him my covenant of peace, and he shall have it, and his seed after him, even the covenant of an everlasting priesthood, because he was zealous for his God, and made an atonement for the children of Israel. Now the name of the Israelite that was slain, even that was slain with the Midianitish woman, was Zimri, the son of Salu, a prince of a chief house among the Simeonites. This guy was a Simeonite. And the name of the Midianitish woman that was slain was Cosbi, the daughter of Zur. He was the head over the people and of a chief house in Midian. And this is why you don't go after these women to let them take your heart away from your power, because then you're going off. But going on, I mean, if you deal with a chick, for the most part, a lot of chicks that are here, you know, they don't believe the truth that we believe. It's not every chick you're gonna deal with that's gonna believe it, but the Most High is dealing with you, and what He's looking for is for you to keep your heart steady after Him. All right, and if you can do that, then you'll be good. If not, then you just might get a javelin thrust through you as well. So it says here, verse 26, back in First Maccabees Chapter 2, verse 26. Thus dealt he zealously for the law of God, like as Phineas did unto Zambri, the son of Salom. And of course, being that it's in the Apocrypha, the names are spelled slightly different. So you'll see Zamri or Zambri, and you'll see Salom, which in the scriptures it's similar, but it's not this, slightly different. So basically Mattathias putting that Israelite and that officer to death, or that commissioner to death, was likened on to the zeal that Phinehas had when he thrust through Zambri or Zimri. It says, and Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me. So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that ever they had in the city. Kind of given that like basically how they all rallied, like the house of David when you read in, I believe, the book of Samuel. I forget which book it was, but it goes into how those that were chafed in the spirit and they all basically came. I'm not saying that Mattathias is David. I'm in no way saying that. I'm just saying that those that were willing to stand for the law of the Lord rallying together, just reminded me of Second Samuel or First Samuel. But it says here, so he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that ever they had in the city. Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there, both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because afflictions increased sore upon them. So basically, it started to become next to impossible to live in the city, because you would constantly have these commissioners and these officers coming and doing rounds, committing atrocities, killing and raping, forcing people to go off, constantly inspecting, and and if you even try to be a crypto Jew, right, a Jew inwardly, and act like whatever they wanted outwardly, it would still be too much. Okay. Verse 31. Now when it was told the king's servants that the host that was at Jerusalem in the Slakia, and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of David. So remember that they had set up like a fortress or a garrison over there in the city of David, where they stored armor and food and victuals and wicked men to lie in wait. It says that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were gone down into the secret places in the wilderness. They pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath day. And they said unto them, let that which ye have done hitherto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and he shall live. But they said, we will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day. So then they gave them the battle with all speed. So they basically came there and said, look, let me cut you a deal. How about this? You done some stuff, right? And really, we ought to really put you to death. But let's let bygones be bygones. Put it water under the bridge. You just come and give you a second chance. You come and you do the king's commandment, and then we're gonna let you live. How about that? But the people said, no, we're not gonna do that. It wasn't we didn't refuse to do it on a whim or on a fluke. No, we're resolved not to do that. And also, as you see, to profane the Sabbath day, right? Because they would pretty much go be committing certain law unlawful acts, okay, which like this demon, that Israelite that was gonna go do it, that Mattathias slain, that's pretty much that, and whatever else the king wanted them to do. It says, so then they gave them the battle with all speed. So they basically said, all right, your choice, and they basically rushed on them and just started killing them. Howbeit they answered them not. So the Israelites that were resolved to stand for the law of the Lord, they didn't fight back. Neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they hid. So they didn't even try to defend themselves or try to secure where they were hiding, and they just basically let whatever happened happen. It says, but said, let us die all in our innocency. Heaven and earth will testify for us that ye put us to death wrongfully. So they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them with their wives and children and their cattle to the number of 1,000 people. So they slew 1,000 Israelites because those Israelites refused to do after the king's commandment. So think about Revelation 13 and 15, that all that would not worship the image of the should be killed. So guess what? In this time, they're going to come, and you will have certain Israelites that are going to be forward, and they're going to go in right away. And then you're going to have other Israelites that are going to stand firm, which are the elect for the Lord. But this time, the Lord is not going to let them just get touched. Okay, Isaiah 59 and 19. The Lord is going to lift up a standard. Verse 39, now when Mattathias and his friends understood hereof, they mourned for them right sore. So when they heard about the news, they were very sorrowful, and they mourned. And one of them said to another, if we all do as our brethren have done, and fight not for our lives and laws against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth. At that time, therefore, they decreed, saying, whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against them. Neither will we die all as our brethren that were murdered in the secret places. So they basically resolved to say, you know what? This is a decree that we're making, that even though it's the Sabbath, we're going to need to make an exception, because if they come to fight against us, we're going to fight back. Because we can't just sit here and just let them kill us all. Right? So that's an account of, you got to do what you got to do. Right? That's what they did. Verse 42, it says, then came there unto him a company of Assyrians, who were mighty men of Israel, even all such as were voluntarily devoted unto the law. Which, when you do some research on it, they basically say that the Pharisees the sect of the Pharisees was formed via the Assyrians, or the Hasidim, or Hasidians, however they call them. Not Hasidim, Hasidians or Assyrians. Basically, they said later on in time, because these were the ones that were devoted onto the law, that refused any Hellenistic, any Hellenistic assimilation. And in time, in future on, the sect of the Pharisees were formed. So going on, verse 43, it says, also all they that fled for persecution joined themselves unto them, and were a stay unto them. So they joined their forces, and smote sinful men in their anger, and wicked men in their wrath. But the rest fled to the heathen for succor. So they started fighting back. Okay, and at this point, their father Mattathias was with them. The Hasmonean family and those that were joined onto them, they basically started fighting back against wicked Israelites, sinful men, started putting them to death. And then those that, when they realized that Jake was standing up, the righteous of our people were standing up, they started running back to the heathen, for succor. Then Mattathias and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars. Because remember, in the first chapter, it tells you how they set up idol altars. And what children soever they found within the coast of Israel uncircumcised, those they circumcised valiantly. They pursued also after the proud men, and the work prospered in their hand. Yeah, because the Most High was with it. So they recovered the law out of the hand of the Gentiles, and out of the hand of kings. Neither suffered they the sinner to triumph. Now, when the time drew near that Mattathias should die, so in process of time, as they kept fighting on back, he was already getting older and older. So when it got to the point when it was time for him to die, he said unto his sons, now hath pride and rebuke gotten strength, and the time of destruction, and the wrath of indignation. Now therefore, my sons, be ye zealous for the law, and give your lives for the covenant of your fathers. Call to remembrance what acts our fathers did in their time, so shall you receive great honor and an everlasting name. Right? So Romans 15:4, he was basically telling them, as he was doing, to call to remembrance the deeds that our forefathers did. All right, and that would basically comfort you in knowing, because those deeds the Lord rewarded them for. So it would put you on the right path, remembering, okay, such and such or such and such and such and such, what did they do? How did the Lord interact with them? And why did the Lord treat them the way he did? Because they clearly all had something in common. So it says here, was not Abraham found faithful in temptation? And it was imputed unto him for righteousness. Joseph, in the time of his distress, kept the commandment and was made Lord of Egypt. Yeah, because Potiphar's wife wanted to commit adultery with Joseph, but he refused. And even when he was accused and thrown in jail, he still stayed faithful to the Lord, and the Lord raised him up. Now, he was in there for 2 years. 2 years, you may read over it, like I say, like a one verse or one liner, but 2 years is a long time. All right. 2 years, that's what, 20, that's 2020. That's from 2020 to now, however long that's been. Now imagine that. You stand for the law of the Lord. You say, Lord, I'm not gonna do this. And you get thrown in prison wrongfully. And here it is, you're waiting for some miracle. You're waiting for the Lord to do something, and 2 years go by. Some Israelites would have lost a lot of faith. I mean, not a lot of faith, but a lot of Israelites would have lost faith. Man, Lord, just left my ass in here. It's been a whole year. Well, I've been in here for a whole year. But with faith, also, you got to have patience. Let patience have her perfect work. So verse 54 says, Phineas, our father, in being zealous and fervent, obtained the covenant of an everlasting priesthood. Jesus, for fulfilling the word, was made a judge in Israel. Now, I read this verbatim because this is referring to Joshua, okay, the successor of Moses. Now, it says Jesus here because in Joshua in the Hebrew is Yahushai, but when translated, I believe into Greek is let me see, it's Yoshua or something like that. Let's see, Joshua in Greek. Oh, would you look at that? The Greek Septuagint translation of the Hebrew Bible and Greek New Testament consistently render both Hebrew names Yehoshua, whence Joshua, and Yeshua, whence Jeshua, into Koine Greek as Iosus, whence Jesus. So that, or Jesus, that name Jesus is not even Greek. All right. The letter J didn't exist at the time of the Greeks speaking their language. So they didn't call him Jesus. This is how they called him, Jesus. Okay. Which Jesus is Joshua in English. Okay. Jesus is just like some, a transliteration or a translation or however it is of it. But the actual Jesus is Joshua in Greek. So when you see Jesus over there, the actual name is Joshua. And the Hebrew name for Joshua is Yahweh. So when when you read in Matthew 1 and 21, for example, right? Matthew, quick point, 1 and 21. You'll see it says here, speaking of the birth of the Lord, right? It says, and she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name. Now, I'm just going to say it verbatim just for edification's sake, but thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. So now, clearly, when you see this Jesus here, you should know, oh, really, this is Jesus in the Greek, which goes back to the Hebrew of Joshua, which is Yahushai. Now, ye shall call his name Jesus. First off, Mary was not speaking Greek, nor not that neither, or let me say, she did not name him or give him a Greek name. Neither did she give him an English name, right? So if we know this name Jesus is really supposed to be Joshua, would it not make sense that Mary will give her son a Hebrew name? Would it not make sense that the angel would tell Mary to call him? The angel would be speaking to Mary in Hebrew anyway. We're just reading it in English because it's been translated. This conversation was being had in Hebrew. So in Hebrew, this Jesus wasn't there. The angel didn't tell Mary, call his name. Let me see. Let me make sure. Then Joseph, but while he saw these things, the angel appeared unto him. Okay, Salakia. Um, this wasn't to Mary, this was to Joseph. Okay, so it says here, but while he thought on these things, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a dream. So the angel came unto Joseph, right, saying, Joseph, thou son of David, fear not to take unto thee Mary thy wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. Right? So it says here, and she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name. Right. So when this angel was speaking to Joseph, what language was this angel speaking to Joseph in? Was Joseph a Greek speaker? Was Joseph an English speaker? No, Joseph was a Hebrew. He was an Israelite. So the angel would be speaking to Joseph here in Hebrew. And in Hebrew, this name is Yahweh, which when translated to Greek is Jesus, which when translated to English properly is really Joshua. So that's just a little bit on that. But going back to First Maccabees chapter 2, we left off in verse 55. This is talking about Joshua, okay? And that's just more proof showing you that the Yahweh's name, right, the Messiah's name is actually Joshua, which in the Hebrew is Yahweh. So it says, Caleb, for bearing witness before the congregation, received the heritage of the land. David, for being merciful, possessed the throne of an everlasting kingdom. Elias, which is talking about Elijah, for being zealous and fervent for the law, was taken up into heaven. Ananias, Azarias, and Misael, by just more commonly they're known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but those were actually Babylonian names that were given to them. Okay, these were the actual Hebrew names. So it says, by believing were saved out of the flame. Daniel, for his innocency was delivered from the mouth of lions. And thus consider ye throughout all ages that none that put their trust in him shall be overcome. So this is what Mattathias was exhorting his sons with. And likewise, we can exhort one another in these times and in the deadly times that we're very quickly approaching in these things. This is why it's good to know these scriptures and to read these scriptures, because how would Mattathias know this if he wasn't reading the scrolls, if he wasn't, well versed? And through that he was able to pass on this good exhortation not only to his sons but to us in the future who would be reading this. So us in this time, we need to do the same thing and recall our forefathers in the past and what they did and how the Lord delivered them, and have that faith that the Lord is going to deliver us now. So it says here, fear not then the words of a sinful man, for his glory shall be dung and worms. Today he shall be lifted up, and tomorrow he shall not be found, because he is returned into his dust, and his thought is come to nothing. Wherefore, ye my sons, be valiant, and show yourselves men in the behalf of the law, for by it shall ye obtain glory. And he wasn't telling them, get out there and go find as many women as you can and get your body count up. That's not what the advice he was giving them. Okay? And behold, I know that your brother Simon is a man of counsel. Give ear unto him always, he shall be a father unto you. As for Judas Maccabeus, he hath been mighty and strong even from his youth up. Let him be your captain and fight the battle of the people. Take also unto you all those that observe the law, and avenge ye the wrong of your people. Recompense fully the heathen, and take heed to the commandments of the law. So he blessed them and was gathered to his fathers, which is another way of saying that he died. When you gather to your fathers, or you slept with your fathers, because where fathers meaning his forefathers. Well, where were they? Right? Where would his fathers be? Where did they go after they died? They went to the spirit world. So when he was gathered to his fathers, it means he also died and went to the spirit world. It says, and he died in the 146th year, and his sons buried him in the sepulchres of his fathers at Modin, and all Israel made great lamentation for him. And that's the end of First Maccabees chapter 2. So yeah, that's pretty much it on that. Lord willing, if the spirit permits, like I said, I will continue on, in the subsequent chapters, and Lord willing, we can get through the book. But I hope that was edifying unto the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah, Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.